yeah, who needs a script is completely accurate for what we're doing. But anyways, hello and welcome back everybody to the CJ Bushido YouTube channel. By popular demand, i.e. me being too dumb to keep my mouth shut and kind of promising I'm doing a tier list, here is said tier list. And I have some guests who are going to join me and help me do this absolute shit show of a tier list. And they are the lovely Tony, SonofDraigo.
Hey guys.
And the ever-popular man who is in search of data lost and or found, Wandler.
Hey guys, very happy to be here.
Exactly. And yeah, we've just basically quickly mocked up a tier list and got all the faction logos down there, and we're going to just plop them in the tier list and talk about what the heck we think, why they should be there and why we rank them the way they are. Obviously, this is only our personal opinion, and we're just three loud people on the internet, so don't take this too seriously. But yeah, why not? Just go ahead.
However, we are indeed correct.
Definitely, 100% correct.
I mean, there's two good players in this conversation and me, so I'll start us off, and I'll just say, absolute S tier, Minimoto. There you go.
Yeah, there you go.
No,
maybe before we start, let's just quickly run through what we define the tiers to be. So, I think our S tier is very self-explanatory. It's just insane. It's great. It's always good. Then A tier for me, and I'm open for debate on this, is a faction that has if it fades one, maybe two matchups it really doesn't want to see, will feel like an S tier faction. Then B is just, a good faction, but they will struggle into more matchups or have more even matchups than some of more of the S and A factions. C is a faction that is maybe struggling right now. And then I've added a tier which is called incomplete or needs more releases, which, long story short, I'm just going to put Imperial Court right there. They are, they're still at the beginning of their journey as a faction. And we already know, more models will be releasing, the Mengyi and the Nanhua, and there's supposed to be more Fangxi on the way and other models. And once we see them, then they're going to become a more rounded faction as a whole. We can talk about them where they probably currently stand right now, but I feel it's slightly unfair to rank them right now.
I disagree. Okay. Right off the bat, I think they have two themes that they can play. The Eternal Legion, obviously, in March. And there are some weird interactions around Imperial March and Imperials, as we all know, like Karu, for example. But I think they should still be ranked because people play them at tournaments. So absolutely, they are in incomplete tier. You're correct. But they still are being played at tournaments and they're eligible to be played. So I think they should at least get a rating, while I think we all agree that they need more releases.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know. I think even if we were to rank them, they'd be at the bottom for that reason.
And that's fine.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I'd put them in the bottom of B tier or maybe in C tier, just because while I don't mind what they can do, especially the Imperial March theme in the Imperial faction can be quite solid. It's just limited, right? So if your opponent has a good answer, I think you're immediately in trouble because you're very one-dimensional right now. And what really hurt them in my eyes was the errata change to active key feats only going into the main phase, because they used to have so many tricks, right, with buying activations in the end phase and then doing it again in the starting phase and having this massive turn of where your Terracotta Warriors would have 3 or 4 activations, and then you slam the Tirelist card on top of that. And they just go absolutely ham. And they just can't do that anymore. Or even shooting their volley in the end phase, where they're no longer considered having moved or ran. So there were some shenanigans there that they've lost.
I would still say that this ruling, moving all of this to the main phase, is a good one for a multitude of reasons. It hurts certain factions, absolutely correct for this one. Also, Pokemon are suffering through that a bit. But I think it is better for the game.
Oh, 100%. Like, we'll not open that debate right now, but I 100% agree with you that it was a good idea.
Yeah, I think for the overall health of the game and also for future proofing, it just means that when factions are being kind of created and play tested and developed, having that already in place means that you haven't got to worry about, oh, well, if we do this key feat as an active, are we going to have to worry about X and Y? It already takes care of that. Plus, I think the other thing that kind of hurt the Imperial faction, the Terracotta Warriors in particular, is the ability for more models to be able to destroy terrain without spending key. Yeah, when they become statues again, you have to be aware of a lot more models that can get to you, and they don't have to spend key to ruin terrain anymore.
Yeah, like currently, what is it? It's no animals insignificant and aloof. Was that it?
Yes.
And then anyone that has a maximum key stat of 0, so I think they're pretty safe from skellies and stuff. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So yeah, they can be quite matchup dependent, right? And then obviously that will shift them down in the power ranking, and yeah, that's why currently, I'd probably put them in C tier. Like, don't get me wrong, they can win games and they can do really well at tournaments. It's just they are very much dependent on the luck of the draw, who they get.
Yeah, they have some very good matchups, but a lot of really troubling matchups, and they don't have the bandwidth to have 2 unique lists that deal with all of this. And looking at March suffers from being played in Imperials, which is hilarious. That means that some of the strongest models you could play in Imperial March you can't play here in Imperials, which then takes away an option for a strong second list. I agree that they are very much bottom feeders.
Yeah, but respect that. As well, I expect that to change with all the releases that will be upcoming. Right, we've seen some of them. Some of them already in the app, so you can already look at their cards, like the Meng Yi and the Nanhua. And then once they get more models, I think I've seen some artwork of a water Fangshi floating around and other stuff that is planned. Then they will rise, to where they're supposed to be. Okay, but let's move on to the next faction. Cult. What are your thoughts on Cult, guys?
S, straight away, S. I think they've got so much synergy, so many absolutely incredible profiles. They are strong across zones and idols. They've got a lot of recurring, annoying things for your opponent to have to deal with. They've got good fighting models. Just all round, I think they're an S. If not an S, then a low S, high A. But yeah, Cult are easily one of the top 2 factions in my opinion.
So Cult is currently sporting 7 themes, pushing an 8th one at the moment. Multitude of those is playable. They have both breadth and depth. They can play from skellies to weird ghosts imagined and drawn up by Craig. Pretty much everything in the book. They can be beaty. They can be NPE towards control play. I think I absolutely agree with Tony. They are one of the most interesting factions in the game. Still hate them, but that doesn't make them worse.
Yeah, I would have to tend to agree that for me, they definitely would feature in my top 3 factions. And you've already, I think, mentioned one of my main arguments for that, and that's their flexibility, which comes from the fact that they're one of the old factions, like one of the original 4. So they've just had a lot of releases over the years, and they have this incredible breadth of interesting and strong profiles to choose from. And particularly if you're playing in the Bump in the Night theme, where you just have full flexibility, you can do whatever the heck you want. You get to mix and match and cherry pick all of those really strong profiles, like the Fua Kaidan, like the Wan Yudo with his Iron Wheel upgrade, Ikirio, and just make, the problem statement for your opponent and say, hey, can you deal with this? Yeah, they feel amazing. To be honest, I was shocked we didn't see more Cult at the Manchester GM in January.
Yeah,
I was
I mean,
convinced we would see more, and it was, I think, one of the lowest representations of factions.
Wasn't Descension? No, Ito, one of the most played factions for whatever reason.
yeah, I think a lot of people wanted to take Ito, just kind of like if enough people take it, then hopefully we'll get an Ito GM win, and that did in fact happen. I think for me, Colt are, yeah, as you both said, that they're so flexible. You can pick one or two standout models, and just the faction has enough incredible depth to them that you can just build around, whichever kind of play style you want. And then that only becomes even more prevalent in the two list competitive format, where you can build one list as, going heavy into sort of maybe control, or, being really annoying and just kind of sticking around. And then your second list can be much more, of a beta list with high impact, models that deal with, opponents really, really quickly. And the fact that you can kind of just switch between those in a two list format is just what makes Cult so hard to kind of guess and play around.
Yeah, agree.
Yeah, definitely agree. Although there's
So-
one profile I consider very strong that I never see, and that's Kato. Like, has he been cropping up for you in your metas?
Kato? I saw him in the past a lot. I haven't seen him played recently. I think he's very oppressive and very interesting, especially together with the zombies.
Yeah, I haven't played against Kato in, I'd probably say, like at least 2 years. I know that they brought out the big version of him. And I think that kind of spiked a lot of people kind of looking at the model again, which is great. And I know that one of the members of the Sorry Spartans was definitely looking at crafting with Kato, with the marionette, where you can, I think there's a card that means that you can get double the stuff out.
Crush the oppressed.
Yeah, probably.
Overworld counters, yeah.
So, he was kind of brewing alongside that as as definitely kind of like a place to start from. But yeah, you're right. I think it's weird that we don't see more of him. But again, I think that just goes to show how incredible the whole faction is. The fact that you've got a really standout profile like that, and that you don't really see very often, because there's just so much in the faction that is just essentially competing with.
Yeah.
Why we're just talking faction at large as a rapid fire round, just from the top of your head, and not talking rules wise, but what is your favorite model in faction?
Oh, goodness. My favorite model, I mean, like, depends on what the criteria are, but being the competitive nerd that I am, if there's one model I always want to have on my list and on the table, it's Fuwa Kaidan.
Okay. So for competitive reasons.
I guess for me, for not competitive reasons, just because of, if I see that model on the table, it always looks great. It's definitely the new Lotus Kaiden.
Oh, going with all the Kaidans. For me, I would say it's the Reds. Just in general, their look and feel is amazing. Like, just seeing them on the board is always fun, and they have so many fun mechanics to play around. Are they super competitive? I don't know yet, because there are new releases coming for them, but they just look fine and they're fun. So there you go.
And I would say, like, stylistically, if I see Gendo on the board in like a mixed list, I really just appreciate what's going on, because I think he has a lot going for him. If you summon in a rat swarm, send it off one way, Gendo the other, and your opponent has to constantly keep in mind that Gendo just might switch positions at any point. So I really appreciate.
Oh, also orphans. They're the orphans in the faction, who are all amazing and fantastic models and sculpts, and their scenes are great as well, I think.
Some of them are pretty strong as well.
Oh, yeah.
Making people berserk is never bad, for example. And we all know
Yeah, I
what
think-
envy is.
Yeah. And I think the fact that we're already putting them in sort of, top tier position. And yeah, as Wandler just said, we've got the new rat infestation theme, which again, when you look at that card and you look at some of the cards that came with Nonbo, the new rat Shisei. I think you look at some of the synergies that you can do now with the rats, and you think, wow, again, this might be another really, really strong theme that has, so much potential that we just haven't seen yet. So it's definitely one to keep an eye on.
It actually got me to think about buying them all and starting to play some Cult. I know I would be very bad at it because I don't play the strong stuff, but I would want to play the rats.
I'm going to be honest. I play tested this theme back in when it was in alpha, and it was very strong. However, it did make me go and buy every single rat model. So the only cult that I have are the rats. I have every single rat model that's currently been released, because that theme was so much fun to play.
Well, that's a success story, if nothing else. Mad. All right, but enough about Cult. I think we're pretty much in agreement that they belong up there somewhere. I would put them in my personal top 3, and I dare anybody to disagree. Really, they are good, and winning 2 GMs last year was also no mean feat. But yeah, let's move on to Ito. What are your thoughts on the most recent GM winner?
Has to be said that they were piloted by, in my eyes, and sorry to talk you down, number 1 ranked player Craig at this point in time. CJ. They were piloted by Craig, and I think they were piloted by the best player in the world. Just gonna say it as I see it.
It's not close.
Yeah. No, it's not. Craig is the best player in the world.
Yeah, so kudos to you, my friend. Kudos to all of you here, but Craig is Craig. I think they're a strong B tier for me. They are not in AOS tier at this point, and the newest release with the
Cold Blood,
the Cold Blood box that came out yesterday and Adepticon, it doesn't make them stronger. It's more side grade than anything. So yeah, that would be my guess.
Yeah, I mean, having lost to Craig in the final of the GM, obviously seeing what he was able to do and pilot with that list, I didn't feel at any time that it was unsurmountable. I was just up against a better pilot, and yeah, I mean, I think I have to agree with Wandler that they're a solid B tier, high B, low A tier list. The Cold Blood box definitely just gives them, I think, a little bit more breadth and definitely a little bit more depth. And I think the Cold Blood box really, really leans into the Blood of Orochi, more so than anything else. And yeah, they definitely got a new beat stick with Ku Ula, the new, Yasamata on steroids. And yeah, I think overall the faction at the moment is in a pretty good place, and then whatever concoction Craig creates with his GM winning model is only going to help plug probably a faction gap that he identifies, I'm sure.
Yeah. I think I agree with your guys' assessment that they're high B, low A. I think I'm willing to, in my mind at least, throw them a little bit of a bone, because we haven't, I don't think, we haven't seen the impact of Ayako's new Jade Witch card, which has been cropping up everywhere online, by the way, in the Blessed theme, for example. And maybe Cold Blood will add to that theme and make it even more interesting. And why do I say that is currently I have a feeling that while Ito has a lot of power within the faction, looking at, profiles such as Itsunagi and Yankee and Satoshi being a great tank and Saka Guichi, to shout out Craig, it feels slightly narrow. So there's a really insane list there, but it feels like it's, kind of like the main thing they have going on for them, and where they are definitely not on the same level as Cult for me is they lack the breadth of options, or at least competitively viable options at the highest level. where I start to get scared and say like, oh Jesus, how do I deal with that? So yeah, Itsunagi and Vile, like, ugh. But current,
Yeah, I think
I think that lack of options is holding them back a bit. But maybe the new box is the secret sauce.
Yeah, I mean, I literally pulled the trigger on the new box. I don't own any any Ito at the moment at all, but I pulled the trigger on the box predominantly because the models are incredible, and I think as a standalone box, it just has some good synergies in it, and yeah, I don't think it's something that I would take competitively, but definitely a games night at the local club or playing against a friend. I think it's going to be really good and fun to play with. I do agree with you with Ito at the competitive top level. I think they do struggle, which is why I think Craig only ended up playing one list the entirety of the GM, which was the list that he played against me with Itsunagi, and you can see why the list is incredibly powerful, but it just goes to show that we had um a pretty varied scenario pool at the GM with quite a few zones, and then some good scenario um some good scenario players as well, but he only ever took that one list, which I think just goes to show that even in a good pilot's hands there's a lack of options.
I mean, on the other hand, it speaks to the inherent power that is within the faction, right? That faction, that list was able to deal with everything he saw on those 2 days, no matter what the matchup or scenario was. So, like, while I completely fully recognize though I think it's dubbed like Ito Superstars, like this broad archetype, is incredibly powerful. The only thing I think is lacking currently is more a breadth of options. And again, like, I think we can be hopeful that now the blessed errata changes, where the Habibiman get cheaper. Ayako becomes a very strong spellcaster. We don't see enough of Mizuki, to be honest. Like, she's super oppressive with a 3 dice obey. Nanako's a strong caster as well. And now with the Cold Blood box, maybe the source is there. So like I would be fine bumping them up to a low A, but we'll just keep them in B tier for now, and then maybe we'll shuffle it around once other factions fall into place.
I don't expect anyone to come in front of them in B. I think you're absolutely right. There could be an argument to be made, low A or high B. Let's keep them there. I agree, and see where we end up in the at the end of when we filled in all of them.
Oh goodness, you want to rank them within the tiers? Ooh.
Yeah, I mean,
You always suggest them within the tiers.
Come on.
There will be discussions later. Okay, but for now, let's just move on to Jung. What are your guys' feelings on Jung? I don't play them, so really input here.
These guys are 100% smack bang in the middle of B, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I agree. They are a faction. Go ahead, Tony.
Yeah, they are the jack of all trades, masters of none. You can play competitively with Jung. They've got some great options, none of which are standout, wow options. But I think with Jung, I played Jung quite a bit. They were my first faction, my first love. I love them. If this was going to be an emotional based tier list, then they would be S tier. But I do love the faction. They've definitely gone up in my estimation in regards to their consistency competitively with the deep. I think the new release of Chico, really buffing the sharks, is going to give Jung players some new options. Endurance on shark models is great, giving them the deep keyword, which means that they get to have a vengeance against the red pearl, or Banzai against the red pearl model, affected model. She's going to turn on the bleed quite well, giving out bravery with bleed tokens. Again, just lots of good stuff. But they just struggle against heavily optimized lists. That you see at the top tables competitively. So where some factions can really lean into a certain mechanic and really take advantage of it. Jung don't really have that. They kind of rely on shenanigans and some disruption. But yeah, I mean they're good. I don't think that they are anything above 100% middle of the road. I think for them it comes down to the person piloting the list. If you've got look, put it this way, if you gave Jung to Craig, Craig's putting a GM with Jung. It's that simple. It really does come down to the person piloting the list for Jung, I think. But yeah, for me, they're solid B tier, always have been. If anything else, they might move up to a high B because of the deep. But yeah, they're a solid B tier, absolutely.
So if I may jump in, for me, Jung are oftentimes a little bit of a litmus test for the rest of the game. Where do they balance? And if a thing is below how the average Jung model looks like, and it might be a little bit underpowered, and they are also very much built around the synergies within the factions. You mentioned the deep, the way Kaizoku are working is another one of those arguments. I think they're one of the most interesting factions in the game overall, because nothing is inherently super strong, but they all, the sum of the things is bigger than the individual parts. I think that is a little bit their theme. And I agree on everything that Tony just said. Also, they were the second factions I picked up, and it's one of the three factions that I tried to always keep fully painted. So yeah, I love them dearly. And just, looking through their profiles, it's just a blast. Just if you go through the cards, everything looks interesting. Art-wise, there's so many fun rules on them. They're strong, they're weak models. They have everything.
So we bumped them up to S tier, yeah?
I mean, looks and feel-wise, and heart-wise, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Easy.
On the actual table, no.
No.
They have to be a beer.
I mean, could we make maybe the case that they might be the most underrated faction?
Oh, absolutely. I'd have to say yes.
Because every time I've played into a good player running like a deep or a Queen of the Waves list, I'm constantly surprised by how difficult those games are. There is so much, and you spoke about the shenanigans they need to even the playing field. But there's so many weird things they do with blow the man down and kamikaze places. Ryujin in the right matchup can just be a complete nightmare to face. And now that the Miyakomo sorcerer's got buffed as well, I really like the look of the one that can shoot without carrying that line of sight or cover with a push attack and just shove people up of idols or out of zones and say, deal with it.
Yeah, and
Ryojin needs a little bit of love. The way we have been balancing big profiles in the last months, this is a little bit of a, look behind the curtain. I think Ryojin needs to drop several points of rise compared to other high-cost models in the game. I will vote for making him 25, and then everybody can yell at me.
I mean, the thing is, yes, you're right. Stuff like Blow the Man Down is an incredibly powerful card. However, as with everything Jung remind me very much like Skaven from Warhammer Fantasy. Everything's kind of powerful if it all goes off, and there's always an element of randomness with Jung. It's always like a 50-50 coin flip as to whether it works or not. So when it does work, it feels incredibly powerful, and your opponent's like, "Oh, how do I deal with this?" And then when it doesn't work, the Jung player's like, "Well, I spent all my rice and it didn't pay off, but I still had a good time." With the witches, yes, they did get a really good glow up. They came down in rice. They are a lot more efficient with Ryujin, but to make the witches incredibly good, that's a 30 rice tax. Which, as someone that's played Jung at quite a competitive level, he is a magnet. He just gets so much attention because he's a big model. If you don't deal with him, he's quite disruptive. But he's too many rice. I have to agree with Wandler. Having been involved in balancing some models recently that are big splashy models. 25 would be lovely. 30 rice is just is so much for what he does, and the ways that he's easily dealt with. I'd love to see him drop slightly. 5 rice would be incredible. But yeah, he's strong, but he has so many bad matchups, and that's what makes. I think that's what keeps Jung in B tier. It's the lack of reliability with their powerful things, because they're all a bit of a 50-50. And then the really really good models are kind of slightly overcosted. I would like to see all of the captains come down to 18 rice rather than 20, to fall in line with the new captain for the 64 fleet. And I think just small changes like that really give Jung some real different options.
Yeah, it would free
Yeah.
up a few extra rice for, just adding to that bag of tricks or upgrading a profile here and there. And that can make a big difference on the table. So,
I will ask
yeah.
my question again after missing it for Ito. What is your favorite model in faction then?
Oh, God, in Jung, that's a hard one. There are too many good ones. I mean, I have a soft spot for Hitokuchi because Big Shark go nom.
Yes.
I enjoy that visual, and the Jaws movie.
I'll tell you mine. Mine is Ryota. He's just so dorky looking. He's super bad. I think he's by far the worst of the sharks. But I think he's cute. So there you go.
Yeah, I can see that. He is definitely a little bit of a cutie pie.
For me, it's probably got to be Jung Kikoku, because he's an octopus samurai captain.
That too, yeah.
Yeah, what more do you want, right?
You hear
Black Pearl vibes.
yeah, octopus samurai captain just reminds me of being a kid and hearing those other strange words together, like samurai pizza cat. And yeah, I love the model. I love the aesthetic of him kind of like wiggling across the battlefield and then like just smacking someone with a sword.
Yeah. And just so we don't forget, like, if it were Ito, what model would you pick?
Oh, Ito. Wait, I have a strong feeling of that one, but I don't want to go first.
For me, Ito, strangely enough, it's the flying snakes. For no other reason than the first time I ever saw Mutaz playing a game of Bushido. He was playing against Headley on the Friday night before my first GM, and just seeing Headley's models in person blew my mind. And that was one of the models that really stood out. And just it left an impression on me.
So the Shimogamo Viper, yeah?
Yeah, the snake with the wings.
Yeah.
For me, it's the Danger Threesome from Hell, Akane and Asami, the two heavy women Ashikaru girls. They look so good, and I love those models. They are, for me, the pathway between the first generation of heavies that really looked a little bit dorky towards the new generation that we get, which is much more refined. And I just love those models. And I also love putting them on the table because they're fun to play with. So there you go.
Yeah. And I think, again, I have to mix in a little bit of the competitive side in me. I love Ito Yuno, and I don't, for the love of me, understand why she's not in more lists. That model can do some nutty things with Cloud Walk split attacks.
Yep.
Goodness gracious. Like inbuilt finesse. You also don't lose dice for split attacking. She's indomitable, I believe, or something. Wild things.
Yeah, Indomitable 1. But she's a new release. People are, I think, going to pick up on her a little bit more in the near future.
I hope so. It just
She was a fantastic release that went pretty much mute, I would say. Like, there was no hype around her, and I don't understand why.
Yeah, she's amazing. Right. Jesus, she needs to be played more. But okay, I'm not an Nita player. Maybe I just don't understand. All right, let's go to the next faction I know absolutely nothing about, which is Kinshi.
Yeah, so I know absolutely nothing about them, so I defer to Tony. No, I know.
So yeah, I mean, I would say I'm an expert. I have the faction. I've played it.
Oh, I do too. They were a cheap pickup.
Yeah, I played it at our local club at the Sorry Spartans a fair few times. They are, for me, they're a low A tier. I think they haven't had the champion that they need to showcase their true power. I believe possibly Craig was talking about taking Kinshi if he really wanted to try hard for the Swedish GM. Whether that is the case, I don't know. But I think if Craig really wanted to like a try harder tournament, I think Kinshi might be what he plays. I know that that they have some really powerful synergies, and again, they're a very limited faction, so we have to treat them slightly differently because of the fact that they are a very limited faction. So you know they have some strong synergies, but they're kind of easy to see coming. So I think a lot of players understand what they do, and it's a little bit more difficult for Kinji to kind of surprise their opponents because you know they have a set way of playing. But I still think that they're an an A tier personally.
And here I am, not starting the faction, not seeing the tricks coming.
No, I would put them into A tier too. They are very good. They are also being made better by the fact that many players have to admit that they don't really understand what they're doing. I mean, that also helps, to be honest. So yeah, I think they are piloted by a good Timmy. They can smash a tournament, as we've seen it.
Yeah, like I think what really concerns me, like personally, about the faction when I'm trying to consider it in my list building and prep, is I don't really get it. Like I read through the profiles, I can see what's written there, but it feels like they're more than the sum of their parts, much more than in other factions, of where they work together really well, and at the same time, having like remembering that Timmy in his first tournament almost just crushed like the biggest tournament to have ever existed and went undefeated with them and placed second. That was a massive eye opener for me. And on the same weekend, when talking to Craig, he told me when he try hards, he plays Kinshi, and that his win rate in his local club is insane with them. I think we just haven't seen their potential, right? Like, goodness gracious. I think I just have to agree with you guys that just by default, then they have to go in A. I'll just put them there. I don't know really where to rank them within A. We'll see what happens. But it's just a faction I just can't really, put my finger on and understand. Like, okay, this is how I have to play against them. This is the game plan, because they just bounce around. And if I can't get rid of those portals, when I've been playing against them, I just feel so helpless. I don't know.
I think there's an element of that with everyone that plays with Kinshi because, as we all know, they don't play Bushido. Everyone else is playing by a similar rule set, and they have their own rule set. And I think for your opponent, it's sometimes difficult if they're not familiar with them to try and keep track of what's happening with their accumulated power level. And then as the pilot, sometimes if you forget one or two key interactions, it can really hamstring you. So they are one of those factions that when you're playing them at that level, you've got to just constantly be aware of everything that's going on. They're a faction that requires quite a lot of concentration. But yeah, I'm hoping that CJ gets to experience Kinshi in the hands of a good player at Sweden. even if only as a friendly match before the actual event starts, just so he can be shown the true power of the void.
I think the thing that holds them back is their very limited model count. They could almost be in the incomplete faction part, whereas there are no plans to currently expand them in a meaningful way. So, and I know they were designed as a limited faction, but the nature of the game is that, if you stand still, you get overtaken at one point. The fact that they're still holding up so well 4 years after their release is pretty impressive to the game design that they were put through at the beginning when they came out. I personally would like to do something for them. I mean, Tomoaki was an attempt, and I think it didn't fail. You see him again and again. But maybe there is some space for 1 or 2 extra releases in the next years. I would hope so.
Yeah, that'd be cool. I have to, just on a very small tangent, let's not go down that road, but I don't subscribe to the idea of a limited faction. Kind of as you put forth, if you stand still, at some point you're just going to get overtaken. So I'm really hopeful that at some point we can get a go-ahead and get some more models in for them, because they're just such a cool faction as well. I love the models. And before you ask, no, I can't decide which one's my favorite, because I literally can't tell the sculpts apart.
I think it's also just important to remember that their second theme is very, very powerful in scenario plays. And with that theme, it's a case of although they might not get new releases within the faction because they are a limited faction, every new Ronin that comes out has to be very carefully measured because of that faction.
Yep.
I mean, look at the Celestials, look at Master Bat. Master Bat was probably the best objective runner in the game, bar none. I think we can all agree on that. But he became an S tier model in Kinshi because of the everything and nothing theme. Being able to run around and push buttons essentially forever for free was was incredibly powerful.
You mean too good in an objective-based game?
Yeah, I mean, if we're going to look at this as an objective-based game, then yeah, sure. I mean, best model in the game, Windmill Slam. Every Kinshi player probably bought that model day one. It was too much.
Yep, I agree.
As for favorite model in the faction, I like Kodai. He's the guy with the lantern, and it looks like a kind of what do they call it? It looks like a Dementor from Harry Potter. I love that model.
For me, it has to be Ku. Ku is just a beautiful model. Great rules. Now I go with a competitive mindset. Ku is just great, and he's fun to play. He's fun to play against. It's always interesting to see him, and he presents his own unique challenge, which I really appreciate. So yeah, Ku it is for me.
Is Ku the sculpt who's low to the ground and kicking?
No, Ku is the sculpt that Wandler commissioned several of the best artists in the community, and they do it's the one with the staff with the 2 circles at each end.
Stick Boy, got it.
Yes, Stick Boy. Yes.
Case in
Boy,
point,
yes.
I can't tell the sculpts apart, and I think this is one of my problems when playing against him. I just don't know who is who and what's going on. But yeah, it's very much in theme with Kinshi. Fashion is void. Oh well. Okay. Let's move on to the KKZ, the ninjas.
Big sigh.
Yeah, go ahead, Woodward.
They're one of the hardest factions to rank in my eyes, because they 120% are dependent on their pilots. They don't take you at their hand and just guide you through a game. A Minimoto model will always have its melee put and its armor. It will always work in a certain way. Ninjas just completely fall apart if they're not piloted correctly. And I think this is why they can be everything from a low C tier by a novice pilot who doesn't know what he's doing, what they are doing, to somebody like Jonathan playing them and just smashing 2 GMs in a row. Does that argument make sense? So I would defer to you two guys on this one. I think they're strong, but they're very dependent on the pilot.
I am completely in agreement with you. They are literally I think for a lot of players, they're a Marmite faction. You either love playing them or you hate playing them, because they are arguably very non-interactive for a lot of new players. Camouflage just says, no, you can't see me, you can't do anything. And that frustrates a lot of people. I think, if I'm being completely honest, if we're going to put Kinshi in A, then I have to put KKZ in A. They are an incredibly powerful faction, as Wanda said, if piloted correctly. They have a very steep learning curve, and they have a very, very punishing play style if a dice roll doesn't go your way, or if you leave yourself exposed for a single activation. And again, it's one of those factions, like I said with Kinshi, that you have to have an elevated amount of concentration to play them, because every single activation feels so impactful. And if you mess up one activation, your ninja's dead. They're a high cost elite faction that only really runs between 4 and 5 models on average. So losing one is a huge blow, and you can start to snowball quite quickly. However, if you play things correctly, it can be really difficult for your opponent to interact with you on any level. And if you set things up correctly, they can certainly take out pretty much any model in the game without too much issue. So yeah, I think I'd have to put them in A because of high skill ceiling, but high potential for failure.
Yeah, I would even go one step further. If some of those lists even get to fall behind, if they suffer an errant damage roll, a Blood Moon Ninja getting damage takes away an activation. That alone, where usually factions should shrug off a hit point, that's fine. Just can break your game already. It's rough. You have to be perfect.
Yeah, I think I have to agree with you guys. Obviously, like in Bushido, always pilot skill is paramount. Like for me, pilot skill is 95% of, a faction strength or a list strength. And it kind of goes double for ninjas. So yeah, while we could rank them anywhere between C and almost S tier, essentially, depending on the pilot, and I know firsthand how powerful they can be, remembering that finals game in Hamburg very not fondly, where I was basically shown what ninjas do in the hands of a strong player, and Jonathan crushed me. I just had the wrong plan, wrong list, didn't understand the mechanics and the models correctly, and got spanked. Learned a very important lesson that day. And yeah, I would also want to rank them not by like what the average player does, but like what the potential is. And there, yeah, the potential's sky high. So I would want to put them towards the top of A. Like towards
Absolutely. I wholeheartedly agree. I think, yeah, I mean, I've played against Jonathan as well, and yeah, he's an incredible player, but he just does showcase what they can do in the hands of someone that just knows the faction inside and out. But yeah, I think they have to be the top of A.
Yeah, absolutely agree. They're just so good as a faction. They get so many interesting profiles. There are few that are utterly unplayable. Like even with the small model count that they actually have, they have a wide range of stuff that you can play. And again, I've lost every game 3-0 against Jonathan ever. So I can subscribe to that guy being very good.
Yeah, I guess favorite model in the faction probably has to be. I'm a big fan of Katsumi. I just think he looks just cool and menacing. I've always thought he was a really cool model. I know he's not very dynamic, but I've just always really liked the model.
Huh. I have to be selfish in this one. Shiho Kizo with his Caraplings. I was part of the creation of that model. I love him so much, and I think he brings some interesting things to the faction and also to Shiho. So I have to go with that one. Technically a Ronin, I know, but still.
And I think I have to go full Edge Lord and Pun Lord and say it's Shinyuki. I love the pose, and he does have that edge.
And just for anyone listening, I just want to clarify, they're known as Carapups, not Caraplings. Carapups is the correct word. I will never call them. I know they're called Caraplings, but I will never call them that. It's always Carapups.
Fair point. Fair point. Yeah, and then maybe just to round them off, why don't I feel I want to put them into S tier? Is only by the measure that they have like specific matchups that can be really horrible. For example, if your opponent has a ton of Sixth Sense and just essentially says you don't have a faction mechanic because they ignore the camouflage. Or, if webs just, remove camouflage and they just have to kind of play fair. I think those are the matchups they really don't want to see. While
there's also
games they feel great.
It's not just the camouflage Sixth Sense, which is obviously definitely 100% a problem. Like ninjas, if they play against someone like foxes, that's just an absolute nightmare. Against Awoken is an absolute nightmare with webs. But also, I think there's quite a few effects now across all the factions that you'll have like a ranged model that has an effect that ignores cover. And if it ignores cover, then camouflage doesn't work either. So they get caught out by, the occasional model here and there. And as you said, losing one model or even an activation after being damaged, as Wandler said, it really does just change how your whole game then goes from that point onwards. So for that reason alone, they can't be S tier because they just have that kind of glass cannon approach.
Yeah, very much agree. Also, I want to bring up Deadeye, wherever it is in the faction, is very dangerous for ninjas as well. So, yeah.
Yeah, by the same, like Buzembo just enjoys picking off ninjas, or Zama and the other falconers, or the is it the Fishermen of Rokan that have the cormorant?
Yes, Fisherman and the one named one, which I can never
Kintaro,
remember.
Yeah, and then like Jung have got like Duri, and they've got loads of stuff like that. So yeah, and as you said, it seems quite ubiquitous across quite a few of the factions that there's that element of being able to remove cover as a skill, and that just terrifies me as whenever I'm playing ninjas.
Yeah, like even a Grey Pilgrim getting to start bouncing Raiden's Rage around doesn't sound fun. And then you're always dependent on the dice because you just don't have any rerolls in the faction. But yeah.
Yeah. So let's move on. Obviously, that is a problem that they're facing.
Yeah, Minimoto, easy C tier, right?
Is there a D tier?
I'll make one. No.
No, they have to go into B tier, B tier.
Yeah, no joking around. I think this is an easy A tier.
I agree with the way they currently are. Yes, I think before they were solid B, and I think they really struggled in certain scenarios. But as our good friend Matt from Arashi's Fanboys went to prove at the UKGM, the way the faction is currently being played with Hoshi becoming more prevalent in lists, I think they really do have a good time of being able to compete with other factions and Six Idols. The synergies with Blizzards and stuff now are incredible. Hoshi's MB coming out has definitely got some sauce to him. And overall, I think the Ice Witches are in so much of a better place that they're on the table everywhere now, and it's great to see. And then, of course, for zones, the finest steel, pick 5 great samurai, go bonk. They're just solid. But yeah, they're definitely A now because of the ice switch changes, in my opinion. Before they were a B tier.
I must agree. I think there is a discussion to be had if some of the ice switch synergies should be toned down a little. Also, in looking at what is coming out for that faction in the next year, they might very much be on the verge of becoming an S tier faction. So, yeah.
Yeah, knowing what's coming for them, I have to agree with you. And yes, in particular, one of the witches needs to be looked at for a specific interaction. I just don't think heal in Minimoto should be allowed in any way, shape, or form. And that model is almost impossible to kill unless you kill her in one shot, which is very difficult to do in a faction that has just a scratch. So yeah, that one particular model is just very, very powerful, very, very strong, and very, very annoying. So yeah, at the moment they are definitely an A tier, but as you said, Wandler, I think with some of the stuff that's happening in the background and could be coming soon, yeah, I would have no problem putting them in S.
Yeah, I think it's hard to agree, especially once they get expanded. I mean, I think the public at large knows that the Peacock are coming and have seen a lot of the artwork, and they look fantastic, by the way. And all I can say is this will expand, your options within the faction massively, especially for list building, which may be another one of these cases. And I feel maybe similar to Ito, that Minimoto can be narrow at the competitive level, like top levels, where you have your finest steel list that kind of does everything. And like the second best list I've seen is actually then a Ronin list that specializes in doing 6 idols. Just because the finest steel list will do everything else. Like if you build that list correctly, it's so resilient, so strong, hard to take down. Yeah. Are there like matchups they really dislike seeing? There must be some, right?
Well, as a whole, the faction really doesn't care about opposed key and stuff because of resistance being everywhere. I don't think they particularly engage very well with ninjas, unless you're building around unless you tailor your list for that. In which case they have some synergies that specifically deal with ninjas. But I think anything that is able to give them conditions, like fire, poison, bleed, anything that can give you a condition without having to enter a melee, they really don't like because it just gets around their tankiness and armor. So I think Ito are quite good at giving out poison, especially with the new Cold Blood box that's coming out. I don't think they're going to enjoy that. Anything that's got good range, so like Bizembo, Ayumi from Awoken, Kuna from Awoken, anything that's got really good ranged that can again give out conditions or has like a strong like pierce or brutal or something like that arranged, I don't think they particularly like because they don't get to hit you back and they don't get to roll dice. Anything where you can take their dice away as a form of defense is kind of their weakness, in my opinion.
Yeah. I also think they might not enjoy the cult matchup just because there are so many like very strong key feats cult can and usually does bring that doesn't care about all of their spirit and resistance. Looking at you, Fua Kaidan, with your Aya key feat. That not only like just happens, but then also usually ends up in wasting 2 Minimoto activations, which is just very good tempo-wise. Plus, they have kind of a distinct lack of combo attack in the faction, because I don't see a lot of Yuji. I think he's the guy who's combo on demand, right?
have to disagree with you on this one. There is combo attack in the faction. People just don't play it a lot.
Well, that's what I'm saying, right? I don't see it in the competitive side. Like, yeah, you have Machiko who has a ranged like rapid fire, which is pseudo combo, and Yuji can buy combo.
Akatsuki has the
They
built
get
in.
walled, right? So I think Cult has a very positive matchup against like the current meta list. Because you just mess with them. And Wanjudo, I mean, you can either go in and fight, or you just start doing infernos and putting out fire markers. And again, that just happens, so it just bypasses all of the natural resistance that the Minimoto would usually have. So I think that's the matchup they really don't want to see. For some reason, I kind of think Jung is awkward. Like, if Jung has like a specific build, I think you can really annoy with all the difficult terrain you can put out.
Yeah,
I don't know.
absolutely. Also, Jung can knock you down quite easily, which is something, as Tony said, Minimoto really doesn't enjoy.
Yeah. So maybe those are slightly awkward matchups. But in general, I think you're very confident when you're playing Minimoto. And as you alluded to earlier, they're also easier to pilot because, the Minimoto profiles are just very, very forgiving. They're very solid. They're very tanky. You have just a scratch to save yourself in a pinch if you mess up, or if the opponent like rolls really, really well. So I constantly see them performing well, but I think this was something Mutaz told me when we were discussing Minimoto about like 9 months ago. It must have been, where he said he sees them as the perfect N-1 faction, and what he meant by that is that in like a random 5-round tournament, it's super easy to win 4 rounds, but winning that 5th round is really hard, which is why Matt going 5-0 was such a really amazing result, because they'll always have that either the one awkward matchup or struggle against a fast faction on 6 idols if they just happen to get paired into that.
I agree. Favorite model? Come on, guys. Give me something.
It has to be for me the new Hoshi Zenbi. That model is really, really, really cool, and the artwork is absolutely amazing. And yeah, I mean, the guy looks incredible, and that weird sword thing that he's got with the ice coming off of it is just it's a cool model. He's just a baller.
I'd love to say all of the Peacock models, but they're not out yet. And I have to admit, when you asked that question, I immediately in my mind was gravitating towards Hoshi Zenbe. I think that sculpt and the artwork is fantastic, but I'm going to be different. And as much as I absolutely detest seeing that model on the battlefield in every game I play against Minimoto, I really like Machiko's sculpt.
Yeah. I have to say the same. Machiko is a beautiful model. It's a strong model. I liked painting her. So yeah, Machiko gets my voice as well.
Alrighty. The
Moving on.
evil faction in the setting of Jwa coming up now, the prefecture of Ryu. Me.
Oh, see, I was about to say somewhere Boomy is going to be steaming out his ears.
We always, needle each other on this. But yeah, what are our thoughts on the prefecture?
Put them in B. Let's talk Savage Wave.
Lack of interest.
Yeah, I think they are a high B tier list. They have some strong synergies, but again, I think as you've been alluding to, like they're very narrow. I think a lot of people know, from a list, what that faction is going to be doing, and you just play around that synergy to the best of your ability, and then to a degree try and ignore it. But yeah, I think they're a solid high B. I just I think there are other factions that just do things better. Yeah, for me, they're a B. I don't really have much else to say against Ryu. I'm not a huge fan. I really like Passing the Night as like a visual kind of collection of models. I really like the idea of that theme. But I think that particular theme has caused serious problems within the faction in regards to balancing and how certain models of that theme have become prevalent in pretty much every list. But yeah, I think they're a B tier.
I agree. It's just they have so much going for them, and none of that is particularly specific. If they are like the how do you say this? Like the milk of the game, or the beige of the game, that's perfection.
Yeah, that statement I think has to stand. They are very much the beige. I'm struggling because like I can't disagree with the statement or like the feeling that I have that they are Minimoto but less options and less stuff to do because they have samurai that go bonk and they're very good at that. And then they have pass tokens and order and some shenanigans around that. That is never bad, but at the same time, if you get that matchup and your opponent can deal with it, you can feel very helpless. And you just don't have a lot of proactive agency. And I think that's what I hated the most about when I was playing in Manchester. I had one plan and one plan only, and there were no other ways to success that I saw. And maybe that's, my list building being bad at that point, not giving myself the options. But then again, I didn't really see much more. So like Mizuchi was incredible, super powerful model, and I think very much underrated. And I hope more people pick up on the fact that dragon is just really strong. But again, if you don't mind, if you can deal with that, and you can deal with like, I don't know, a Hagane missile coming at you, then the faction's in trouble. I wonder if the new release, Mizuko and Shogo Ryu, can maybe change that dynamic because they bring a very different style or like option to the faction. Especially if you, like, say you split up in turn 1 and then have the dragon flanking in behind your opponent on turn 2. And even if they can deal with it, you don't really care because you can throw him away. And if he dies, he dies. And you still have Mizuko running around, being helpful, pressing buttons, shooting fire, handing out fire shields. But I can't really argue that they should be ranked lower than Minimoto.
And
currently.
they should also, in my eyes, be ranked lower than Ito, to be honest, because you brought up Hagane.
Yeah.
I'm much more afraid of an Itsunagi missile than of a Hagane bomb. I'm just saying it flat out. Like, I'm more afraid of that.
Yeah.
Having played against Itsunage and both Hagane and Itsunage is way more of a pain in the ass to deal with.
Yeah.
Yeah, I honestly feel that I have to disagree and say that Ryu are definitely below Minimoto in my opinion. Minimoto have a lot more interesting things going for them. They have, I mean, I'm not saying it's particularly like competitively viable, but they have all of the synergies with the different kamis now. The changes to the metal kami and all the blizzard effects and Koyama has had a rice increase but is still so strong and helps deal with ninjas, helps deal with them not being able to be surprised very much, darkness effects. There's just so much that Minamoto can deal with now that I don't think I could put Ryu in the same league as Minamoto anymore. I think Minamoto they're just so versatile, so reliable, and I think when when I was been playing against Matt from Arashi's Fanboys at the Spartans Club, he made a really good point for Minimoto, which was essentially the faction itself is so so kind of like self-sufficient that Minimoto helps you learn to play the game quicker, because the only thing that you really have to learn well to play Minimoto well is positioning. The models take care of everything else because they're so durable and they're
Guys,
so reliable that
can I
all you
stop you
have to
there?
worry about is positioning.
I know. I
Can I
want to
stop
point
you
something
there?
out here. May I?
We're talking about Minimoto while talking about Ryu.
Yeah, and this is, I think, the most damning statement for why Ryu is beige.
Did you want to say the same?
Yeah, I hate to say it, but yeah, it's true.
Because they are Minimoto in beige. You just have
They are.
but less, just less interesting, less options. I mean, and don't get me wrong, they can win tournaments. And recently, Burmy again went 3-0 in the south of Germany in Rosenheim, and was just slapping fools left and right. Like, they have the strength, the mechanical underlying power of the faction is still there. It's never,
And again, the pilot is the key here.
Exactly. Burmy's just a fantastic player and an all-round awesome dude. But yeah, I feel if you do get that really awkward, difficult matchup, you are very much struggling to catch back up and get the game back into a state where you can influence the battlefield meaningfully. But yeah, favorite sculpt. You're going to say Wandler.
You know what I'm going to say?
Yeah, you're going to say Horaki. Let's just get that.
No.
What?
I have to be different. Yes, it's Horaki, but I want to give a different answer. It is Boob Hagane.
Boob Hagane. Original Hagane. Okay.
No, it is Horaki. It is. That was the model I was dreaming of making for that faction. And when we got the opportunity to create the community wave, that is the model that I really wanted to make, and I love having her. So yeah, it's Horaki.
For me, I'm gonna say Kumiko. I love the pose. I love like the story of her, and I just feel that, having read kind of like her lore and her fluff, they just captured that perfectly in the model. And every time I see the model on the table, I just keep remembering the story of her. And yeah, I think that's a really cool model. Probably a lot of people would just probably say it's quite beige, and the all the samurai and Ryu all kind of feel the same. But yeah, she's the one that I like the most.
And obviously, you are all wrong, because it's all of the hair models combined that are just way better than all of the Ryu models, or the Takashi models. I love Kiyoshi so much. I know I'm biased, but I love Kiyoshi. And I also think Togai, as goofy as the model is, I just love him to bits with his weird weapon.
I've got to admit, the most interesting part of the Ryu, I think we can all agree, is the hair clan. And I'm waiting for the day when, yeah, they become kind of a little bit more of their own thing.
Yeah, God, they need a theme, right? And a few more models. That'd be amazing.
Yeah, it's like we're almost there. You're right. It's literally just missing a theme and like maybe two or three maybe models, and like you're there. You've got your own like a complete hair clan list, and yeah, I'm ready. I'm waiting. GCT, just make it happen.
Let's see what's coming.
Bad for my wallet though. I'd slam that order button. But yeah, please. If you're listening, guys, please be great. All right, Savage Wave. What are our feelings?
So for me, I'm conflicted, because honestly, if they're like, they exist in two places at once in my mind. They exist in C and A both simultaneously.
I agree on this one.
Because I think without the hunting pack, they are a C tier list. They're a C tier faction. But because of Hunting Pack, they are an A tier. So make of that what you will. I think I have to put them in A just because Hunting Pack does exist, and it's going to be prevalent in pretty much every Savage Wave list going forward. But yeah, without that theme, they're a solid C.
I will disagree with you, and I will want to put them into C because Hunting Pack has two very specific counterplays. If you can't prevent them, and thus two very specific bad matchups, that takes away the group from the alpha, and in that case, the list just starts falling apart. I would argue that they are our first C tier faction.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Like I said, for me, they were both simultaneously because of that one theme, and yeah, I mean, I hadn't even considered the drastic matchup situation, but yeah, as soon as you take away the ability of Hunting Pack, they drop straight into C, and that is their home.
Can you elaborate on what matchups they are for the uninitiated?
Well, everything that can kill the alpha, preferably without counterplay or with some kind of trick, or at range, makes the tar pit that the bats are and the punch that the wolves have, the alpha, what are they? Kaihei?
Yeah.
They're not, the dogs have, much less because they don't come all in at once and eat your face. And in that moment, the list pretty much is a glorified tar pit, and nothing else. It doesn't have the punching power to get through the profiles it has to kill.
I fully agree. However, I'm also going to disagree that they're C tier. I would have put them in C tier pre-errata.
So where do you rank them?
Alphas, no, like the glow up of the alphas, no, no benefit the doubt. I think Ring of Fire, the shooting list that Commander Vimes wrote, the Red Squadron, is surprisingly good. And Mutaz's Kamimono, the Bakemono with 2 Kami of Sapping Silt, are really awkward to face. I think that pushes them from C tier up to B tier, alongside the Bakemono Hunting Pack.
So you want them near Jung?
Yeah. I
Fine
think
with
not
that.
giving the old stuff enough credit. And also, I'm very curious if Yamimura, with his new errata, isn't secretly super interesting. Now that anything within 4 inches can use his key feat as an instant.
Yeah.
If you can't remove him, the stuff just keeps coming back, and you can keep getting back boomers who you then just shoot and throw away and keep rinse and repeating.
Yeah, okay. Let's put him in B. We need a C tier faction at one point, and I'm looking at the rest of them, and I'm getting worried.
No, I know where it is.
I know where it is as well. But yeah, Savage Wave is difficult. Yes, the couple of lists that you've just put up, are potentially kind of annoying. And again, I think they're only really going to see play in some of the top pilots of the game because of the nuances. For me, the Savage Wave lists, other than including Hunting Pack, that are the ones that you're talking about, are essentially like Jenga. If you take out 1 or 2 key pieces, the entire thing just falls flat. And for me, I don't know. I don't think. I think they definitely belong high C, low B. But if we're going to put them in B, they are like B, but scraping the barrel.
Yeah, so I think you're 100% correct in your assessment. Like, if you can take out the 1 or 2 key pieces, then a lot of stuff falls apart. But I'm never going to forget one very small tournament at Mutaz's house where he first showed off the Kamimono and almost brought his ninja opponent to tears because 2 of the ninjas were just constantly move speed 2 because of the Kami and just couldn't move. They were constantly getting trapped by Trapeng, and he just destroyed that poor lad. It can be really nasty.
Yeah, it can be. And, I've got 2 Kami of the Sibling Silt in my deep list with the Mother of Pearl, and everything in my list is all built around grapple and immobilize.
Yeah.
And having 2 of them in the list are incredible because they cause immobilized and they -2 to your move and everything else that you've just said. But I am feeling that there is a shift in the game where actually being able to deal with Kami is becoming more and more prevalent, because Kami are becoming better and better as the game progresses. And a lot of people are looking at how to deal with Kami now. But yeah, I just I don't know. I think if you're going to put them in B, then they have to be the bottom of B. I
Yeah.
think they're too fragile to be anything above that.
God, I know I'm gonna get hate comments for this, but I'll put them in B. Because not only have they already won a Grand Masters this year, as well as a large tournament in Germany, which is strong meta. They're I would say they're odds-on favorite to win Adepticon today for a second GM win, and I hope Sean does it. He's my boy. Gonna back.
But this is the pilot argument again.
Yeah,
This is fantastic pilot.
and again, this is the argument of hunting pack. Ask Sean to win a GM without hunting pack. I don't think is happening. There being a strong pilot of the hunting pack, those two things combined is why it's probably going to happen. And that's not to take away Sean's skill as a player. He's a very good player. But I think he's a very good player that knows how to play that theme very well. But I think if you take that theme away, Savage Wave, I think he'll do very well. But I don't think it's a foregone conclusion like it probably is at the moment.
Yeah, I think I can underline that statement. Yeah, Savage Wave. I know we're gonna get so many comments on this. I had people in the Discord. That is fine. We're floating them to be an S tier faction just because of the hunting pack. So they're
But that's
dissent here.
There will be, and all of the people that dissent are unfortunately drinking the lunatic mushroom tea that Savage Wave have been putting out.
Fair. Talking sculpts. Guys, what are your favorite sculpts or models, or just models, not sculpts? What is your favorite model in that faction?
Goodness gracious, let me have a think.
I go first this time. It's Boba. The rules are amazing. The old sculpt I liked. The new one is beautiful as well. There is nothing wrong about this model.
For me, it's gonna have to be it's so tough. It's either Junek or Yokash from the Ring of Fire box. And I think it might be Junek. I think Junek is such a cool looking model.
And while I admit my very first thought was on Boba, I'm actually happy dissenting and going Kafeng the Gardener.
This is one of the models which gets us back to the very beginning of this video. This model did suffer from the rule that, you can do active key feats only in the main phase a lot. Because in German Grandmasters, when I played into Bakemono, I had 4 in the starting phase every single turn.
Yeah, that's horrible.
Oh, it was not fun to play into that.
Yeah. No, and then I think I remember hearing an anecdote about Kafeng that he wasn't supposed to have gardening tools, but it was a misunderstanding, and now it's a really happy accident.
Yep.
Yeah, I had the same. I think from Ben maybe.
Ben said that, yeah.
Yeah. But again, how Bakemono, how Savage Wave is that?
Yeah, exactly, right? It's no, not throwing knives. He
like
has gardening tools.
Art imitates life, imitates art.
Yeah.
Yes.
Nah, fantastic. I will brace myself for the hate comments, but life is hard. Let's go on some more hate comments and go to the Shiho.
Yep, C tier.
Yeah, sadly, that's the one.
Yeah, see,
It
uh,
it hurt
it's
me so much. This was my first faction, and I love them dearly.
okay. Again, if a disclaimer, they are a C tier in regards to competitive play. If we're talking about looks and feel of a faction, they are S.
Oh yeah, definitely. Hats for the
Okay, I just want to preface that by saying like how the faction looks and how they kind of how they make people feel and everything else. They're up there. They are S. You know, a lot of people buy into Bushido because of Shiho and how they look, and that's absolutely relevant. But just competitively speaking, how the faction is performing, and everything about their play style at the moment is just C. It's just C. I'm sorry, but they're so narrow. There's only one real way to play them, which is the virtue playlist, and
This stuff will let's go.
yeah,
And
it's
I'm
just
gonna heavy disagree with that. Interesting. Okay, we have a discussion on our hand, boys. But maybe you start, Wandler. Do you think they're C tier and it's appropriate?
First of all, they would be my faction for D tier, which means to be deleted tier. And the first one, Filthy Traitor should go away. No, I, I'm struggling with them. I think they have such an interesting playstyle, and they're only a few releases away to become a really strong samurai faction in the game. That is going to be easy somewhere in between those two right above them, Prefecture and Ito. I mean, maybe even higher. I would say that they're suffering from the fact that one of their two big wings in the faction, being either the Shiho or the Tanaka suffer the most from having basically no range to themselves. And that is one of the things that massively holds them back, because every time you see a Shiho player, he usually plays double virtue, and that seems to be commonly, and this is why I'm binding my argument back to Tony's argument. That seems to be the common agreement of how to play the faction, and or Ronin, and that just doesn't make a good faction to me. I'm sorry.
Yeah, sadly, I have to agree with that statement. It doesn't make a good faction. So for me, I think you've hit the nail on the head with what you just said. They're one or two releases away. They feel almost incomplete. Even though they have so many models out, they're getting releases, something's missing. So in my mind, purely competitively speaking, you cannot play the Tanaka. You cannot play Ashigaru lists. The source is not there. You're going to get ripped apart. Only competitively speaking.
the Ashigaru, unfortunately, are a blank card.
Yeah. Oh, it pains me so much. I love the models and I love the idea so much. I desperately want them to be good. And now the loyalists. In my mind, they are the trap that the Shiho player falls into and thinks they have to play loyal virtue spam. That for me is the second best way to play the faction. And it pains me so much that I think Ronin and pure Ronin is optimal.
Okay, but then my argument will be, unfortunately, sir, is that you're no longer playing the faction.
Exactly. That's just the problem. They're
it's not
one or two key releases away to making them click, to making them work, and then, they're going to shoot right up there, just as like Wandler pointed out. But they don't have them yet. Right?
No, and we don't know if and when they're coming. I think the statement of the double virtue is a trap. I don't think that's fair, because when you first come into the game of Bushido, generally speaking, you kind of come in based on the rule of cool of the models. You probably have an affinity for the kind of the visuals for the game. So a lot of people, buy into Bushido because they really like the artistic design and like the kind of, tap the sign. It's not Japan, but the Japanese kind of influence of the art and the style of the game. You don't generally come into Bushido after, sitting down and working out all of the ins and outs of each faction. You kind of just jump in with both feet because you like it. Now, if you jump in with both feet into Shiho because the models are cool as hell, you don't look at Ronin straight away at all. You look at the models in the faction and you go, oh, okay, I understand how this works. You take this model and this model, they give out virtue, and then they, the faction uses virtue to leverage the fight in their favor.
Yeah.
At no point do you ever get into the faction and instantly go, oh, I'm going to look at what Ronin are. A lot of people don't even know what Ronin do and what they're supposed to do in the game when they first start, because they don't have a faction. They don't have an identity. They're a collection of mishmash models. So I think it's unfair to say it's a trap when people get into the game and they look at the faction and what the faction does. It's easy to read what the faction does with the virtue, and I don't think it's very simple to look at the other themes and go, well, if I take this Ronin and this Ronin and this Ronin and take these cards, they'll be super optimal. I think that only comes once you start getting involved in the Discord and the community at large, that becomes explained to you. So yeah, I understand where you're coming from, because I think we're experienced players and everything else, and I think it's easy to say that. But for someone coming into this and maybe listening to this YouTube video as someone that's just got into the hobby and into the game and trying to understand what the conception and what the notion of the power level is, I don't think it's fair to call it a trap.
Fair. Maybe I didn't really explain what I meant there, but it's purely from a competitive lens. Like, if I'm, as an experienced player, trying to pick two lists, I think it's a trap to pick a loyalist list. I would pick two Ronin lists. That's what I mean. Like, I feel currently it's optimal to just not pick any faction models at all, which is so sad. And believe me, behind the scenes, I'm going to be pestering everybody who will listen to me that we need to fix this ASAP. I'm going to be pushing so hard to get that. I hope we do, because my goodness, are they a cool faction. And again, like, it's just one or two little things missing. And I have many, many sympathies for GCT here, actually, because I have heard that they were intended to be released differently with more models. But I think the sculptor got sick or something was the problem. And then because they wanted the models to, be from the same person so that they all have this coherent look and feel, they delayed those models instead of handing them to someone else. But this process has now taken way longer than they intended or even, hoped would happen. So again, I think we're not far off, and we're going to be able to, in the hopefully not too distant future, get those releases, and they're going to just blossom into that faction they were intended to be. But this is why I have this feeling of they're almost incomplete. And from a competitive view lens, like, what I would currently do is play, the standard obvious Black Eagles coalition with just pure Ronin. And interestingly enough, the new theme, the New Eagle Army, also with pure Ronin. Because what's stopping you? And you get two enhancements for free that can be equipment. And you can stick them on your models. Free vial, anybody? On a Tenbatsu? Let's go.
Yeah, and that's the problem. And this is why... But this gets us to a different conversation. This is the Ronin conversation, and we're not having that one today.
Yeah, we're not having this conversation.
This video, my dear friends, is going to be an After Dark conversation that CJ is hosting next week.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Yep. It'll happen. Goodness.
I think... so, I mean,
I'm going to need copious amounts of alcohol for, though.
Yeah.
Cool.
Maybe some of that special mushroom tea that Savage Ray have been drinking.
Indeed.
But yeah, I mean, we're saying 2 or 3 maybe models away. Okay, so in Happy Perfect Land, 2 or 3 models come out. Do you still see that 2 or 3 models getting the faction to a point where they're worth taking the loyal models over Ronin?
Yes.
No,
I do.
I don't.
I don't.
Really?
So many good Ronin are playing for them that you would have to change how the whole faction interacts with Ronin to make the Ronin go away.
And I think I agree with Wandler. I don't see a world where, let's just say, for argument's sake, 3 models come out for Shiho, that they fundamentally change how Shiho play to such a degree that taking either Loyal or Ashigaru's is now more viable than Ronin. I don't see it. I see that maybe in a 2-list format, you still have your Ronin list, but you might consider taking a loyalist list if those 2 or 3 models really do fundamentally change it, rather than taking, in your opinion, the double Ronin list. But I still think a Ronin list is taking up one of your lists.
Yeah, no, this I think will always happen. And like in some sense, it's part of the faction lore and design. They're supposed to be, heavy with the mercenaries. But okay, maybe I have this, very optimistic vision of those 2 models, let's say for argument's sake, that come out that do address that sort of faction gap that exists currently and does help them, really become that very legitimate second list idea.
I hope you're right. I really do.
The dude who does bonk, yeah, that doesn't help that much. I will agree.
No,
But like,
no,
what I'm
and
secretly hoping for is an Ashigaru Gunso. That's the model they really need, and like one of the old samurai on top of that.
but I would also say alongside of that, the Ashigaru themselves need to be looked at probably from the ground up.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And that's the
no-
conversation I would like to shut down at this point, because otherwise we're going to talk about
yeah, I know,
stuff
I
that
know.
we might be seeing and that others don't. So
No, I know. But what I'm trying to say is, until we get to that point, I still think that until these things happen and the stars align, that Shiho will continue to be a C faction until that time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sadly, I have to agree. Right. Favorite sculpt?
Ooh,
I have one. Shiho Aishin. They just looks good.
The blind guy with the spear.
Yes.
Yeah, he's very.
yeah. For me, it's Shirak, 100% hands down.
Shirak.
That model.
Yes, Shirak.
Stab it. That was my pick. I'm
No.
different. And it's the model that initially got me interested in Bushido, and that's Maki, the Ashigaru.
Really?
Yeah, I saw that.
It's a good-
I was like, I'm sold.
It's a good shout. Yeah, it's a great shout. She's got so much character.
Looking good.
So that's how I started Bushido. I just saw that model. I'm like, yep, I'm in. All right. Next up, we have Vanda's favorite faction, STS.
Woohoo. Yeah. Shout out to Max. We had a conversation, Halael on Discord. We had a conversation about that faction in the last days. Actually yesterday. And I think I want to start with a thing he said. That faction is a trap. Starting the game with this faction will not set you up for success. You will not learn how the game works. And you can't become a really good player at that game if you focus on STS exclusively. I'm putting them myself into a low A tier. They're very strong, but they are not good for new players.
I agree that they are an A tier, and I also agree that almost to this, they don't play Bushido like everyone else. Not the extreme that Kinshi are completely different and they don't play Bushido like everyone else, but their way of playing Bushido is just so, I'd say, abstract that trying to get a good understanding of like the core game with that faction is very difficult.
Yeah,
But they are they've got really strong synergies, but you have to lean so far into them, and when you do, it becomes absolutely bonkers.
Yeah, they can do some ridiculous things. And what I consider like to be the main faction mechanic of having hidden information as well as dice fixing is just inherently strong. And if you are a good player and you can leverage this, as we've been seeing recently, they've been doing incredibly well. They won both of the last TTS events as well as the most recent tournament in Germany. They can do some very, very nutty things. And again, I think this is one of those factions similar to ninjas where the piloting skill is just amplified, double. Because if you really understand what you can do, goodness gracious, you can mess with the opponent.
I think for me, this is one of those factions in the game where whenever a Ronin model comes out, or whenever there's an event card or an enhancement or something like that, STS is the first faction that people look at and think, is this going to be okay because of the manipulation of dice and everything else that faction can do? And everything's kind of weighed and measured against, does this break Silvermoon?
Yeah, which is a problem.
Yeah, it's not wrong. But to get back on track of just where do they stand in the competitive landscape, while the recent errata hurt them in a sense that they only got some nerfs to Arakan and the Fan Dancers, which are completely justified, by the way. I do not endorse any of this whining of, you nerfed my favorite models. Yeah, they were insane. Stop it. And they're still doing well, right? They're still crushing tournaments because they're a good faction. Yes, there are awkward matchups and tough breaks you can have, and they can be incredibly fragile as well. If you're not just playing a full Buto list or something. But goodness gracious, they are a broad, diverse faction with so many identities. I think what stood out to me in the Hamburg GM late last year was the fact that while we had, I think Silvermoon was the second most played faction, and literally everybody was playing something completely unique, which was bewildering to me. It's such a healthy statement for the internal faction balance, and I don't think there's a faction that does it better. You have so many viable things you can do in STS, so they are great to mess around with.
Yeah, absolutely, 100% agree, and I think that's what makes them a strong A tier.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, they are brilliant. They're so synergistic. I think they've got more bad matchups than Cult, which is probably what stops STS going into A tier, S tier. But in regards to faction breadth and depth, I think they are up there as probably with Cult. They have just so many toys that you can play with.
Yeah, definitely.
And they're all great, and they're all characterful, and they all make they all feel great in faction.
Yep.
Yeah, they do exemplify this sort of gangster gambling identity, like the underworld, the criminal side of it, really, really well.
Yeah, the fact that there are none of the standard keywords that usually exist, or almost none, that really makes it feel well, I think. So yeah,
I love it. Favorite model in the faction? I'm gonna have to say Kenichi Gimu. I love that model.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I think that's probably partly down to Headley's paint job. But yeah, I love it. He's got such a kind of like a cheeky character, and then you look at that and you look at his card, and it just all kind of meshes together. And I think the model just absolutely nails it.
Yeah, fair. What about you, Wandler?
I would be difficult in this one. I say the Gaijin. You never see him, but that model is actually, first of all, he's quite strong. And secondly, just that model is a little bit different, even within STS. And I really enjoy seeing him. And I've seen Headley's painted Gaijin, and it's just bliss. So there you go. Shout out to the man.
Pick for model that needs to be played more often by STS players. I don't think he gets the recognition he actually deserves of being incredibly annoying and secretly strong. If I were an STS player, I think he'd be one of the first profiles I'd try to break and really lean into.
Yeah, he's super powerful, and I just don't think people play him enough because they just look at his card and see like under average like stats, but I just don't think people read the actual card properly and go, holy hell, this guy is a nightmare to deal with, and if left unchecked, will warp a game.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, I've been dodging the question. I have two models I want to put forward, one on looks and one on what's actually written on the card. For looks, it's the new Rose, Yoshiko, that Olaf wrote. Goodness gracious, that's a fantastic model. Like card and like sculpt artwork-wise, everything's excellent about that model. I thoroughly enjoy that. But my secret bestest boy in the faction, and who always 100% of the time will feature in one of my STS lists, so that obviously makes him the most busted and broken model in the faction, is Old Zoe. What a Chad Lord.
And I thought you would say the Weasel.
Nah. Melee Pool 1. My goodness, that guy's amazing.
Are we still talking about the Weasel then?
No. Old Zoe is the bee's knees. And because I'm such a dirty little like abuser of rules and I try to break stuff, his channel leech ability in STS of all places is filthy. And his tax ability never hurt anybody either. Oh my lord, I love that guy. So, go. Again, that's another model. People need to play him more. He does not get the respect he deserves. God, I love him. All right, moving on to Temple. So, second
I was
seated
dreading
faction.
that one.
Unfortunately, I think they're an S tier faction.
No, they're incomplete. They don't have enough releases.
Oh, yeah. No, memes aside, yeah. I'm putting them above Cult. I will not tolerate any dissent on this. Get out of here, you freaks.
Yeah, they're just the faction that does it all and does it all consistently and just has an answer for everything.
They're also one of the original factions. And one of the factions where I think they would do well with a two-way split of them. And there is an argument to even make it a three-way split. You can just take Kitsune out of the faction, take the villagers out of the faction, and make it a proper monk faction, and they would still be perfectly fine.
They'd probably still be S tier.
Yeah, no. I absolutely mean that. They don't need all of the stuff that is around the monks. They shouldn't have it.
They're a large, like one of the old original four factions, which means they have almost unparalleled diversity in their profile pool. And amazingly, unlike any other faction, I think you have to really, really try hard to make a bad temple list. Like, I can hardly think of any profile in the entire faction that is bad. Goodness gracious, they have such a plethora of incredibly powerful models. And if you find that right balance of what you want that list to do, I mean, almost anything you could ever want, like capability-wise in the game is there, except for maybe strong ranged output, which is very limited in the faction. But other than that, yeah, they got you covered. And I think what really like breaks them for me, and why I firmly put them as my top faction in the game, and I'm not going to entertain any discussion on that, is the fact that they abuse resource mechanics like no other. That being key and virtue. That's so powerful.
But wait a minute, CJ. What about the Longshanks? Surely you can't be putting them in A tier, S tier, above everyone else. But Longshank says they're terrible.
Yeah, just because I'm memeing around playing unoptimized lists and dragging them down doesn't make them bad. No, if you put a gun to my head and said, because today's the list deadline for Sweden, if you put a gun to my head and say, CJ, you have to win Sweden, I'm taking Temple, hands down, not even close.
Okay, so I have.
So remind me again, what are you taking to Sweden?
Temple.
Oh, okay. Just thought I'd clean that up.
I wanna say one thing. I disagree on one basis with you, and I think this isn't getting really explored, and maybe that's rightfully so. Temple is not bad at shooting. They have the Cormorants. They have like random shots like Sonic Blast with Sweep Attack Lightweight in the middle of it. There is a plethora of good shooting in that faction. It is a little bit, hidden sometimes, like, the Dance of Dragons, fire, lightweight shot that needs key to activate, and so on and so forth. But the faction does ranged, and it does ranged quite well. There are factions much worse off in ranged attacks than Temple is.
Yeah, and
I'll
I
agree
think
Yeah.
okay, but then that just goes to showcase how little the faction needs to have good ranged when it just runs across the board and does what it wants to do anyway.
Oh, you mean a ranged attack like what is it? Oh, a +2 weapon with a 2/4/6 ranged attack that does fire 2/1 and is lightweight on a ranged 3 mod. No, this is actually nice.
And it's
Yeah,
Other factions would kill for that.
yeah, but again, you don't see it very often because the faction has so many other things that are just more optimal that you just don't see it very often.
yeah, that's the thing. And
And it just goes to show that strength.
Yeah, and there are so many good like temple archetypes as well. You have initiation monks who you hardly ever see, but they're so good. I played them last night and they were amazing. You have the masters who were always good and are still great and even got buffed, which, oh god, that annoys me to no end. But well, okay, here we are. You have the kitsune, which is like kind of in my mind the multi-tool answer to most of your headache problems when you're looking at the meta. Is like probably kitsune deals with it. Then you have now the new Sohei list, which has been very, very popular and people are exploring. Even though slightly nerfed, Bastions of the Mountain, the villager list, is still a great list to play. And then there's Themeless, where you do whatever the heck you want and you don't get punished for it because you're Temple.
And then you've got Mikandensho as well.
Oh, yeah.
And
And Incantation as well, which is also super strong. And all of these options are S tier. It's mad. Yeah, I'm kind of at a loss for words when it comes to Temple. Like they almost deserve an S plus. I think
Could you move everybody down?
and now this doesn't mean they just face roll every game, but I think what really makes them so amazing in my eyes is no matter what problem you need to solve, Temple has the answer for you, and you don't have to gimp your list to get it. So if you did your lists well, you can take any matchup and you'll have at least an even game.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely agree. Yeah, you probably get a lot of hate for this, but yeah, Temple are they are the number one faction in the game.
You're not getting hate for that. Anybody who disagrees with that is delusional. I'm sorry. They're just delusional or like in denial.
Okay, well, considering we've just discussed how broad and varied this faction is, what's your favorite model?
Oh, goodness.
This is a tough one.
Yeah, there's too many good ones to pick from.
Again, this faction has a lot of beauty to it.
I think I'm going to go and pick Kuma. I love this Panda and Brewmaster vibe he has going on. And he's also an insanely strong profile. So he kind of, wins in both worlds for me.
I will go with. No, I'll let Tony go first and then a second, and then I go with mine.
So It should be a Kitsune because they are the only aspect of Temple that I own. Because that box is just absolutely full of gorgeous models. But I must admit, I think overall it has to be Grandmaster Ikusa on the Giant Tortoise. It just sums up. But whenever I think of Temple, that's the model I think of. And I think that's a strong reason why.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going a completely different way, and I'm going to pick a model that nobody thinks of if they think Temple, or few think of. I'm going Hotaru.
Ah, yes. 11 Rise of Awesome, Hotaru.
Yes. First of all, I think for the 11 Rise, she has an extremely solid profile. There is nothing wrong about her. Melee boosting for 2, winning. But also, she very much reminds me of my wife with the pigtails and the fiery temper. So I have to pick that one here.
Do you also get slam attacked?
He wishes.
Just windmill kicked.
Yeah, I get windmill kick. That's the problem, yes.
Yeah. Yeah, no, fair pick. Hotaru is great. I wish I would be brave enough to put her into more temple lists, but the impetuous and aggressive side of her card just scares me, and I don't think I'm brave enough to do it. But if you can, like, lean into her for 11 Rice, you get one of the most stacked cards in the game.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
And again, it just highlights again how strong and varied that faction is.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. So 2 factions left.
Yeah.
Yes.
What's up with this this weird symbol here? Awoken.
That appears the incomplete.
Oh yeah.
Well, no, S tier. I think they come in behind Cold. I would argue.
Yeah. I think the current way we've got it set up is that Temple are number 1, Cult are number 2, Awoken are number 3.
Yeah.
And I'm comfortable with that.
I would argue that they are fencing Cult for their spot due to the fact that Cult does, as you said, opposed key, all of that stuff, control quite well against other factions. I think they're struggling against Awoken already, and it's not going to get better with the releases that we are going to see coming out. So this might be, reviewed in a year, but at the moment, I think they're very much very, very well placed here.
I think I agree with you, and I think that even if we came back to this in a year's time, with what we know is probably likely to come with Awoken, I still think that the top 3 will still be Temple, Cult, and Awoken. Just the numbers might be in a different order, but there'll still be the 3 there.
Yeah, hard to argue with that. But maybe we should explain for the people tuning in, why do we think Awoken is so strong, even though they have so few models, right? Because we've been extolling the virtues of how broad Cult and Temple are and how much that, raises them in our esteem to an S tier. Awoken are the antithesis of that.
Yes.
So I think this comes down to a couple of key factors with Awoken. When they first were released, and I'll use their names so that it's not confusing for everyone that's just tuning in. You have the Awoken have families. So the first of the families is Jakuna, which are the first Awoken models that came out in the box, of Joyless Smiles and Dark Eyes. And then the second family is called the Family, and they are Kimura. So we have 2 boxes of Awoken, and they work together quite well as long as you cherry pick certain models from each box. and you put them together in the initial theme, and that's what makes them so powerful. They have very, very, very tight synergies. They have multiple ways to debuff most factions in the game. And then if you combine that with their activation economy, where they get to essentially have free weight actions, and because the way that they're set up means that if you have 4 or 5 models that have a free weight action, essentially you're out activating your opponent on average by 2 or 3 models, which means that you get to then spring and pick a model to essentially assassinate every turn if your opponent is caught unawares. And it all adds up to an incredibly powerful synergy that almost your opponent doesn't get to interact with unless they see it coming.
Which feels very Spider-like, by the way. So clap for hitting, the tone of the faction.
Yes, and I think at the moment, although yes, CJ is correct in regards to Temple Cult have huge amounts of models to draw from, which makes them very powerful. Awoken don't, and that's just showcases how strong each of the parts are that make up the whole. Destiny Sphere was probably the most powerful ability in the game, bar none. It got changed, it got nerfed, thank God, but it's still incredibly powerful. Being able to turn off a third of your opponent's dice, or if they're in a web, half of your opponent's dice, is bonkers. It's not just for melee, it's for everything, which people keep forgetting. And if you then combine that with something like preordain, means that actually you can almost tailor the outcome to be the same as pre-nerfed Destiny Sphere, for a whopping 3 rice, which is just bonkers.
Yeah, it annoys me to no end how much when I browse the faction channel that Awoken players will complain that Destiny Sphere is now bad and they don't want to include Akita in the lists anymore. And I just have this internal screaming monologue of like, if I could have this in any other faction, it would make that faction broken beyond belief. And by the way, I am considering Awoken to be S tier even without Akita.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I agree. No, it's your faction, Hugo. Let's say.
No, it's not my faction. But yeah, no, I deliberately didn't take Destiny Sphere in the Austrian Masters, the event that Matt and Barry from Arashi's Fanboys hosted. I didn't take it in the GM that I came fourth in. And at no point did I ever feel that the faction was a lesser faction because of it. There's so much power in the faction, and I think the nerf to Destiny Sphere, the nerf to the Endless Procession, and the nerf to the Kumo interaction across that, just made me go back to the drawing board and look at the cards as a whole, and then you start to see the the different synergies for each of the cards and how they work as a standalone model, as opposed to just relying on 1 or 2 key interactions, and they still punch way above their weight. Aware, Indomitable 8, Strong. These are all incredibly powerful abilities on their own, and the Jakuna pretty much have all of them stapled on. And then you go, okay, well, yeah, maybe they're not great at fighting, or they're not so great because they don't really have any defensive tech or rerolls. And then you can now splash in a couple of Kimura that lose the aware, but they also now gain armor 2, and they gain abilities to attach control, and they have a +2 sword. So it's, you can plug your own kind of weaknesses within the faction quite easily with 1 or 2 models, and yeah, they work so well together, and it's difficult for your opponent to leverage any advantage.
Yep. I mean, I've little to add. I think they're a finely tuned sword at the moment, and the future of their releases will not make them worse, I think. So I think there are good times ahead for Awoken class, just in general. Gonna be a good faction.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, inherently, like every faction release is always going to increase the power level of the faction, even if only it's, increasing your options. Like if it's a side grade to existing profiles. So they're only going to get stronger over time. And it's something I think the community is going to have to closely monitor, alongside, other things like Temple, cough, cough, that they don't start to get to a point where it's like really rough. I think the only thing right now that's holding back the Awoken a little bit is their limitation in like viable builds. I said they just don't have many releases out yet. So, and they're just going to get more in the same vein like Imperial Court does. They're just going to grow over time, and they're going to be real scary, pun intended.
Yeah, I have to agree. The only reason that they are behind Cult and behind Temple is literally because of list building. I think there are maybe 3 viable lists. One of which is the Fear 7 list, and then after that it's a list with probably Fear 6 and Kuna in it. And then the third list is a kind of a bit of a hybrid smash of the Kimura and Jakuna for more of a zone-based kind of stuff with Obasan, making her immovable and just spending all the time in a zone, preferably with a forest in it, so she has her camo, and just healing all the time, just becoming a brick wall and saying, "This is my zone, I own it, go away." But yeah, list building is definitely the problem child for Awoken at the moment, and yeah, more releases will fix that and just give us more toys to play with. But at the moment, they are incredibly strong. Don't listen to anyone that tells you that they're not an S tier faction. They truly are.
Yeah.
And maybe also like
favorite model?
underline, yeah. Just before we do it, to underline that statement, during errata work, Tony was like the biggest champion of trying to nerf them even harder, even though he mains the faction. I think that tells you all you need to know.
Do not put this man's life at risk here, idiot.
No. I'm the reason all of these nerfs happened. I got so much hate, by the way. It was justified.
Yeah,
Deal with it.
It was justified. I do agree. I really wanted Ayumi to lose her strong on her shot. I believe Kuna still needs to be looked at in regards to how ridiculously efficient she is. I don't know if there's some more things that need to be looked at for Awoken, and I would have pushed for more changes, but they did already probably receive more nerfs than any faction so far. And the consensus was that when we were proposing further changes, that they wanted to let that cook for a while before they did anything else. But I know I'm going to be pushing for Kuna to be looked at and for Ayumi to be looked at, and I know CJ feels the same. So yeah, we'll see what happens. But for now, they are an incredibly good place. My favorite model in the faction, and the one that I was just like blown away with, is probably got to be Kuna. It has to be. She's an incredible model.
There you go.
Yeah, great
CJ?
choice. For me, it's easily Tashi. Goodness gracious,
Yeah,
that's great stuff.
Tashi is my number 2, but when I saw Kuna, I was like, wow.
I love that we are in disagreement on this one, even in such a small faction. For me, it is Kyo. I have to give a shout out to Colibri, one of the users on the Discord, who painted her in these cyber goth vaporwave kind of color style with these orange, yellow, purple hues on her kimono, and I think this is just beautiful, and I love the sculpt. I think there is a beauty to those who are at the beginning of the transformation, and yeah, it's just a nice model.
Definitely. All right. There is another faction down there. Descension. What are our feelings? Other than obviously best faction game, yada yada, get out of here, everybody else. We may be biased towards bird people.
No,
Yeah.
I mean we are, but if I'm being completely honest, I think the changes that they've had in the last 6 months have brought them to a middle of the road, maybe a low B to a solid high A, in my opinion.
Yeah, solid A. I put them there as well. I would put them a tad on the Minimoto, but surely over STS. I would rank
So
them in there.
I would rank them. I would rank them, perfectly there between Minimoto and STS.
Yep.
There's an argument that you could switch Descension and Minimoto. Like, I think you could put either of those factions in either position, and I would see an argument for both. I personally think that Descension are probably actually above Minimoto, just because they have slightly more options. But I see the case for both sides.
I think they are below that because they are harder to pilot. Not talking about the quality of the pilot, but in general, they are a bit harder to pilot because you have to know positioning is, many factions ask themselves, what do I really want to get good at? Obviously, Rio is drinking lukewarm water. Descension is positioning yourself perfectly. And this is why I think they should be ranked on the Minimoto at the moment, because Minimoto is easier to control.
I
it's
agree
not-
with you.
it's hard to disagree.
I hate the argument in general. Like I love trying to position things based on their on the ceiling. Like, what is the potential? But to be honest, like nitpicking whether above or below Minimoto is just, I think, such a futile argument. Like, they're somewhere, they're around there, right?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately,
Yeah.
they're an A tier list, A tier faction. I love the shenanigans they can play. I think some models definitely got a glow up, and they needed it. And I absolutely love the fact that the big birds are now, where they should be. Whereas I think before, the little birds were the real winners. Whereas things like the high tacky are just so bonkers good now. I think before, the prison was a bit of a meme, whereas now it's actually somewhat of a viable tactic, and in the hands of a good pilot, it's incredibly satisfying to watch come across. I do think that maybe the high tacky, probably we need to keep an eye on them, because Feint with powerful attack 0 is is kind of a bit bonkers. But
I don't see that as a risk because the perfect high attack game does not include you rolling any dice. Everybody's in prison in the perfect game.
we're just gonna have to get CJ to edit in some tumbleweed, but no, this is absolutely bonkers. I mean, the prison is brilliant. It's fantastic, but high tacky, still high movement, cloud walk, armor 2, and I think they have reach, feint, and powerful attack 0. It's a combination that actually gives me kind of a bit of a cold sweat sometimes.
Yeah, they hit hard. And I remember thinking when we were doing the errata, is Feint maybe a little bit too much? But I guess we just roll with it for now and then see what happens towards the end of the year. But Descension is another one that just on the virtue of their speed, depending on scenario, they can be really disgusting to face or much less of a problem than you initially imagined. Like I think they benefit a lot from these very early scoring scenarios, especially 6 idols, where you have to split up and be quick. And as soon as you get any of the like turn 4, 5, 6 scoring scenarios, they really struggle, which is my biggest argument for why they can't be an S faction, because they're gonna, like, in the same with Minimoto, struggle in the really awkward scenarios and matchups. But goodness gracious, they can do some crazy things.
Yeah, and I think that is what separates an S tier from an A tier. Is just A tiers just have too many bad scenario and bad like matchups to be considered S. But they're still incredibly powerful in the right situation.
Yeah, I mean, if you fade like all of the, unfriendly matchups and scenarios, then they will feel like an S faction, and that's true for all of them, the factions in A. Right.
Yeah,
Well,
Absolutely agree on this. Like,
Yeah.
these are slim margins, guys. This is not like
very
wide bursts of differences.
like also for the B tier factions, like I think most of the same still applies. Like if you get a favorable tree of opponents and scenario matchups, they will feel S tier in the correct situations. It's just less of a case of the A tier factions. They're still great and they win GMs. As we can see, the most recent GMs were both won by B tier factions, which I think is a fantastic statement for the game, by the way. And only goes to show like the game is really, really well balanced and rounded, and you can succeed with almost anything. And again, for the 2 factions that aren't included in that conversation right now, I think it's only just a matter of time. So, yeah, competitive Bushido is, in my mind, the best competitive game you can play, just because, the balance is great. The gameplay is supremely fun. And on top of that, the community is amazing. It's like very much not cutthroat gaming, like, I got you here, you messed up, and now I'm gonna just screw you over, which I sadly have had to deal with in other games, which is why I don't play them anymore. But yeah, Bushido is in a fantastic spot, and I only imagine that this is going to continue improving, as weird as that is to think about, going forward.
Yeah, so there's a fun little story about tournament GM in Sweden in a week. I'm traveling with someone who's going to play the first games there. The TO sent out the mail about, guys, there is a new player coming. Take it easy on that person. And pretty much everybody, between people volunteering to play that person and others just reaffirming that it's going to be fine, like the community just is happy about the new player coming in, and that's just a great thing in my eyes.
Yeah, exactly. So like if I get paired against the new player, for example, immediately what we're going to do is just take all the pressure of the tournament out of the game and make it a fun teaching experience, and try to impress on them why this game is so great and why they want to continue playing this game. And everything else is secondary at that point. So yeah. But we're drifting off topic. Is there any
think we're done.
decision now that we have the tier list done that we want to change? Or are we happy with the way it is?
Do we think that Ryu needs to be above Ito in B?
Yeah, I was
No.
looking at Ryu and Savage Wave, to be
Yeah, so
I think Rio is fine where they are.
you're just a hater.
like some
I
small
thi- I-
part of me just wants to keep them there just to annoy Burmy.
Well, in which case, if we're going to do that, can we move Savage Wave to with Ryu, and put Ryu after Jung, because that will really wind him up. Yeah, no, it's hard. Yeah, it's difficult. There's a part of me that wants to put Ryu above Ito just because they do have a few more shenanigans that they can employ, and I think at the competitive level they're not quite as narrow as Ito. Jung and Savage Wave I'm quite happy with. I know Savage Wave have obviously got the hunting pack, which is like super optimized, but I believe that the deep theme can be super optimized as well. And Queen of the Waves certainly can. A I'm quite happy with. Yeah, and then S Jung Awoken I think is fair. I wish we didn't have anyone in C, but Shiho unfortunately definitely has to be there for now, and the Golden Legion, yeah, as we discussed at the beginning, they're just not complete yet. We haven't seen their full potential, so they just kind of have to be there for now.
Any voice on that, Wandler?
Nope, absolutely and fully agree. I think the game is in a fantastic state. Even those, as we just have discussed, like E2 just won a GM and we rank him as a B tier faction. Everyone has a chance of winning a GM, or maybe besides Imperials. Everybody in this game can measure up to get to the final table, and I think this is where you want to have such a game. Many of these rankings are being made on tiny decisions or width and birth of a faction, or quite the opposite, as we see with Awoken. But even that is an argument for the balance of the game. So I'm quite happy with that list. But I would also say this could all look different in a week or 2 weeks when the next tournaments have passed and we know more and there are like 2 or 3 more releases.
Oh, I thought this was now the law of the land, and anybody who dissents, essentially has to do hard labor or something. Well,
No, and I think that
here, everybody else is wrong.
again, I'm gonna separate myself from CJ's comments.
It's a healthy thing to do.
But yeah, no, I think that's essentially what Wandler was trying to get at here is that this could change drastically. One release for any of these factions can massively change up how they're played, and yeah, I think everyone can pick a faction and have an equal opportunity to win a GM. Every faction has the ability to do it. It just comes down to how well you put in your time to learn your faction inside out, learn its weaknesses, and learn like its bad matchups, and just play.
Yeah, I want to echo that statement. The most important thing in Bushido is player skill, and pick the faction you love and you want to get good at, and you can dominate. All the tools are there. Again, these are like tiny differences we're nitpicking about in many of these cases, or it's just like in case of the Golden Union, just you need to wait a little bit until they have the models to do the same things. And other than that, yeah, game's in a fantastic state. And I'm already looking forward to all the hate mail I'm going to get to Savage Wave. But oh well, life is hard.
Also, just bear in mind as well, we're on the cusp of a new faction releasing, which could completely change up everything that we've just said.
Goodness, we'll have to do another tier list. Oh no.
Oh no.
Content engagement. Whoa.
Damn you, GCT. Damn you.
Yeah, no, I'm so happy and pleased that we have GCT the way they are, that they're open to, chatting with their community, listening. The community can influence quite a bit, and amazing amounts more than in any other game I've ever, come across. The fact that they release a proposed errata to the public before it goes live and ask for feedback, insane to me.
Yeah,
props to them. I'm very.
We're so spoiled. We are so spoiled. Like no other game out there has as little barrier between someone that's just picked up their first box of miniatures being able to discuss that with like the creators and developers of the game. Like there's like no barrier here. You know, you can literally hop on Discord. I've just picked up my first box of miniatures. They look fantastic. I have question about X, Y, and Z. And the chances are you could probably get someone like Jason or, you know, part of the rules team or the developers to just jump in and be like, hey, welcome aboard. Yeah, I'd love to answer your questions. I'd love to help you. And what a fantastic, you know, position we're in for that.
That's true. And also shout out to GCT for making this possible. Like, yeah, I mean, you guys know us. We're all volunteers for GCT. We work in kind of different capacities for all of this, and it's just fun. And this access is given to all of us, and it's great.
All right. And on that high note, I think we'll close the video out here. Thank you, everybody, if you're still here and managed to survive our incessant rambling for almost 2.5 hours, I think it is at this point. Yeah. Hope you enjoyed what you heard, and please do let me know in the comments if you disagree. Feel free to give the video a thumbs up and a subscribe. It helps the engagement, helps more people see this beautiful game. And, well, see you in the next one. Bye-bye.